Welcome to Hiwaraat. I am Safwan Masri, Dean of Georgetown University in Qatar, and I am proud to introduce the Hiwaraat podcast series. Hiwaraat, which means dialogues in Arabic, offers an opportunity for thought-provoking dialogues with a diverse range of experts. These dialogues span the topical to the philosophical, and they are about engagement with ideas that shape our world.
Hello, and welcome to the Hiwaraat vodcast. I'm Jack Doherty, Executive Director of Strategic Communications here at Georgetown in Qatar. In this episode, I'll be in conversation with Khalid Albaih, a Sudanese artist and political cartoonist who publishes his work on international blogs, social media, and websites under the name Cartoon, which, like the similarly sounding Sudanese capital, is spelled with a K when you plug it into your search engine. Since the Sudanese war began in April of 2023, his political cartoons have functioned as both witness and archive, capturing moments of grief, defiance, and perseverance. He's also the author of two critically acclaimed books, Cartoon, a collection of his political cartoons, and Sudan Retold, a collaborative art book that reimagines Sudanese history as told through the eyes of 31 leading Sudanese artists. Khalid Albaih, welcome. We're thrilled you're here.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you. So let's just start about how you got into this crazy business. It would seem to me that when kids discover that they're interested in art, good at making art, and they start to dream, I want to be an artist when I grow up, is it fair to say that the first job that comes to mind may not be, I'm going to end up being a political cartoonist? So how did you wind up in this gloriously niche branch of the visual arts? Tell us about your creative journey and where you started and the process of getting to where you are today.
I was really into comics. I started copying comics, making my own comics. We used to read DC and Marvel comics in Arabic. And this is what I grew up with. And then, of course, we had our own local stories and local publishing. And but the local publishing was mostly about politics. Like it wasn't just superhero stories. It was also infused with the politics of the time, right? Like the early 90s and so on. So it just tells you that fantasy wasn't a big part, I guess, of the Arabic comic world maybe at the time. Most of it, and there was mystery, there was this, and so when I came to Qatar. Of course, I wanted to understand more about politics because, I wanted to understand why we left.
How old were you when you left?
I was 9 the first time, yeah. Then we kept going and coming back for a few years, but we left Sudan, I think, at 9, yeah.
So, does that, again, just to sort of build a bridge, because for a kid who loves comics, if you're looking at Marvel comics and reading Spider-Man's one piece of the story, and then if you're seeing political cartooning in a newspaper,
yeah,
that's a level of sophistication that's different, and which is not to dismiss the Marvel comic. There's sophistication in both, but my question becomes: there's sort of like, when you say that you were interested in that as a young age on that side of the equation, that's kind of switched on politically for a kid. Do you think that, was it just the context of being in Sudan that tell me about a political awakening, and because I want to talk about this fusion between fine arts and politics and this rope you walk. And it's fascinating to me that this may have started at a really young age for you.
For a kid from the region here and from Sudan especially, we hear politics all the time. Also, like, we come from a family, I think, that's very connected to the politics. I had an uncle that was the president of Sudan at some point. Abdurrahman Sar al-Dahab. We had another uncle who was the head of the Communist Party, who also, was part of a coup against Nimeri in the 60s. It's not that they were interested, but they were involved in it. And I was interested in that involvement. And that, even two very different, Communist Party, Islamists, army, everybody was there and everybody was having lunch together, but everybody was talking about it. But everybody was having lunch together.
And as a kid, you're absorbing all this.
I'm absorbing all of that. But I think the breaking point came when, my dad, who was also, a diplomat, he was, a journalist at some point, he also had to leave, right? In a huge brain drain that happened to Sudan in 1989 when al-Bashir came to power, because mostly he didn't belong to a certain party.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, politics was the reason why I didn't have a home, right? So I was really interested in that. And then, coming here, then I discovered these magazines that my father used to buy, which is, two Egyptian political cartoon-based magazines. One is called Sabah al-Khair, and the other one is called Rose al-Yusuf. That kind of connected the dots from comics to comics that are talking about politics, which is something that I was interested in. And that just, switched on a bulb in my head. And I was like, wow, this relates to the world that I actually live in, not the world of DC and Marvel that doesn't belong to this world that I live in, right? And that, for me, kind of related to it. And also, it made it easier to kind of understand politics in a way, or understand what's going on. And it made me discover different styles as well. So this is really where it happened. And satire was a big part of it. And in Sudan, we have a lot of jokes about politics. And of course, in the whole Arab world, all the world, there's always jokes about politicians. So that made it easier for me to understand what I wanted to understand, or make people talk about what I wanted to understand.
So the first time you left Sudan was age 9. And then you went back, left again at age 13.
Kind of like, yeah, and it was that period when we were like, oh, we're staying, we're leaving. But it was that.
Was that?
But 9 was that we left.
And so tell me all the places you've lived since.
All right. So I was born in Romania.
Okay.
As I said, my father was a diplomat. And after that, I think we went to London for a bit, and then Sudan and Saudi, Doha, the UAE, Denmark, and Norway.
Okay. Did the political cultures of those places help shape and inform your sensibility when it comes to political cartooning, where you're absorbing their political satire in those places that you wound up in after you left Sudan?
I think mostly in Denmark and in Norway, and also I was doing a fellowship in the U.S. for a bit as well before that in Colby College in Maine, and that I was too engaged in what's going on in this part of the world, and to kind of I never saw myself as I am well versed in their politics for me to talk about it. And I think that's something that's very important for you to be a political cartoonist, is you need to know what you're talking about. Right? Because political cartooning is all about critiquing, right? So critiquing without knowledge.
And often some of the best stuff is so many layers down
Absolutely.
that people who see what's in front of them every day don't even see.
My role was kind of be an ambassador to this side of the world. I'm like, this is what's going on here. This is what, your votes and your tax money is going to. I'm a product of that, right? So I'm here to tell you what happened, especially in Denmark with the Prophet Muhammad cartoons, for example, where I met a lot of these cartoonists. And we had a lot of conversations about what does it mean, the right to insult, and we had a lot of these conversations, which was something that needed to be had,
right?
Especially between cartoonists,
right?
Because that became a topic of its own,
sure,
really,
sure.
And we see now after all of these years that there is a bias. Some things you have the right to insult, and some things you don't.
Right.
Mm.
So, I mean, I think particularly when the best political cartooning, when it takes aim at a topic, it's just devastating. And, in terms of when it hits its target and really strikes it. And I want to maybe delve into the satirical side of this a little bit. Tell us to what extent political cartooning contributes, if at all, to the correction of vices process. Can it have a real impact over time, do you think, in terms of changing perceptions or cultures?
The reason why, or one of the reasons why I liked cartooning was also because of the time that I was living in. It was the beginning of, the internet.
Right.
And that gave me a chance to talk to people that otherwise I wouldn't be able to talk to.
Right.
So talking about vices and talking about stereotypes and talking about all of these things to people that normally, I wouldn't get to talk to, and people that wouldn't get to see my work. And because, everyone worked for a newspaper, this newspaper lives here, and, it's very rare that it goes to the West and this was my issue, as a young person from Sudan whose government is, considered, on the terrorist list. I can't really go anywhere. I have a lot of limitations for me to do anything. And one of those limitations is for me to kind of, reach out or talk to a lot of people, right? And the internet opened that door. So this is, and cartooning for me was a mix between, graphic design, street art, and of course political cartooning and comics, right? So it was a combination of all of these things that would make it easier for me to talk to my generation, right? Who is interested in looking at, things that look interesting, posters that look interesting,
right,
art that looks interesting. Then that will make them maybe interested in, so what does this mean? Where does this come from? Right? So for me, cartooning was kind of the means to do that, because it bypassed the borders, right? Literally. And then it bypassed the language as well, because I do it like no comment, right? So I do it in English. So I either, I speak to the other side. And for me, it's not really about, correcting, or it's about the discussion.
All right.
It's really about the discussion. It's about you seeing something else rather than what is told about us by you as well.
Okay.
Right? So it's me
initiating a conversation more than trying to expose folly or hypocrisy or
I don't know. I mean I don't know, I could be wrong,
right,
but that's the discussion.
Right.
Right? And this is the point. I want to create a place where we can talk about things and we can know each other without those filters that are put there because of, these vices, or because of these bias, or because of these political, actions, or whatever. It's me and you, and we're talking, right? This is what I think. What do you think?
Got it.
Right. So
Right.
this is really the reason why I do art and I do political cartooning, is because when I say I'm a political cartoonist, people smile, and that makes it easier to start a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is
if you started by saying I'm a political polemicist, right? Which side are you on? Whereas
exactly, or
you can bring everybody in under the tent with the way you start a conversation.
Exactly, or even when I say I'm an artist, it's about creating that discussion, whatever makes it easier, right? For me to reach you, that's what I will do.
Can you tell us about your sort of creative lens? If you're going to orchestrate this head-on collision between politics and art, what's your filter? How do you identify a good topic?
For me, it was about doing things on issues that interest me.
Right.
And if something interests me, saddens me, angers me, whatever it is, touches me in any sort of way, that's what I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
because again, I have the privilege to do that. I'm very lucky
Right.
that I could be independent.
Right.
Of course, because I do other things on the side that I'm not lucky, but on that front. But when it comes to this, which is very important for me, I do what I want to do, and I ask the questions that I want to ask, and I dig deeper in the issues that I want to dig deeper in. And that kind of developed. So, from doing only a political cartoon, I write an article, or I make a, art installation, or I make whatever delivers the message that I want to deliver. So, because in this age where there's, we have the gift of the internet, which is, everything in your hands, which is something that, a lot of people take for granted. But, for someone like me that, I loved comics, but couldn't get a hold of comics, especially like, most of my life because of, censorship, or because of, the lack of just shipping or whatever it is, I can just log on and see whatever I want. Right. And this just, vast world of, information, but sadly, there's a lot of junk there as well.
Sure.
So for me to stand out and for me to do something that's really meaningful, I started doing what I want and kind of really thinking slow, rather than just going in that speed of the internet,
Of the churn,
which really doesn't mean anything anymore, right? Everything is just so fast, and it made things cheaper, even death, right? Even tragedy, even what we talk about, it becomes the tragedy of the day,
Right.
And 10 people die today, 20 people die tomorrow, 10 people the day after tomorrow, and then you're like, oh, at least it's not 20, and then you go on looking at food or funny videos or cat videos or whatever, so that it took away a lot from that. So I'm trying to control what I can control with that. So I'm lucky that I can do that, and I'm trying to push for a better internet, I guess, and a better internet culture and a better news culture as well.
Right.
Because sadly, news became entertainment.
Right. Right. I mean, so in the same way we're talking about, you've been talking about how the internet has generally been good to you. Have you ever put anything out that you were surprised at the internet's response in a negative way? How's that worked out for you?
So since the mid 2000s, this is when I started to work, like kind of with the start of blogging and microblogging and social media, blah blah blah. When it became too fast, when things just come and go so fast, and of course the introduction of algorithms and shadow banning and so on, it's been a couple of years actually, and this is when I told you that I decided to change the way that I approach this. So now with what's going on in Gaza, for example, at the beginning I started doing cartoons about the situation, and it didn't go anywhere, right? And I just felt that, or even about Sudan, that didn't go anywhere. And when later on, also I have a magazine called Khartoon magazine, where we have a lot of Sudanese artists who are now displaced all over the world. Kind of, it's a platform for them to doing work. We got a message from Meta saying, "Oh, your content is too political, so it's going to be pushed down." So I kind of, realizing that, I actually wrote an article called "How I Stopped Cartooning and Became a Troll," right? Because this is what it took for me to start that conversation, which is a continuation of the, what I wanted to do, which is start conversations, right? And I, because of that shadow banning and because of all of these things and reaching and trying to get to people, because that's not the internet that we started with. This is a totally different internet,
right?
That's totally co-opt and it's and the situation that the internet is in today is exactly what newspapers were when I started using the internet to escape that, right. So I started like trying to go into, the people that I want to talk to now have their own space, which kind of confirms their, their confirmation bias, really. Like everyone's like, oh, I'm great. No, you're great. Yes, I'm great. You're great as well, because we all agree with each other, you know? So I went into that space and I'm like, so why are we great? What's going on, you know? And I started asking questions, and then I started getting attacked, and then, you know, and I got everything from, you know, death threats to like letters being sent to the people that I work with, to every single thing. And that is exactly what happened to me when, at the beginning, when I was working against, you know, the Al-Bashir government, for example, at the time, or some sitting governments in other places and so on, where I also got threats, and I got, you know, all sort of things. So it's about that. It's about asking those questions. This is what gets you here. So there's very positive things that can happen if the message gets through.
Right.
But if I'm doing a cartoon or I'm writing an article and it doesn't get anywhere, I'm just screaming in a void, what am I doing this for? Right. And this is why I started doing this experiment, really, of becoming a troll and going into these, you know, spaces where at the end of every conversation, they're like, so what are you doing here anyways? Go to places where they agree with you. Right. And that's the point. Right. So it could get really bad. It could get,
I'm sure.
And it got really bad, you know?
I believe you.
Yeah.
Let's go back, take a couple steps back. As you talk about the Al-Bashir regime, as you talk about Sudan, under that regime, art was heavily censored. Sudanese artists, they're being watched closely. Tell me how the arts community, as you know it, responded. How and to what extent has the art of Sudan changed since he's gone?
Yeah. So I think what al-Bashir started with, the regime started with in 1989, is that it closed the art school, it closed the theater school, and then they reopened, but they kind of injected their own vision into it, and arts became only a certain kind of art. Not every art is art, right? Certain things you need to do, and which is really the opposite of what art is supposed to be, right? Like if you're telling them, you know, this is the space that you work, then that kind of limits the creativity, you know. But that also, for the artist, it opens a lot of creativity as well, because you need to do workarounds, right? You need to kind of think about how to do certain things. And there was a lot of work by artists. Of course, there was a period of time where people have to think about what to do, how to do it, how to approach it. But people always found solutions in Sudan, and it was incredibly brave. There was a art movement, mostly underground, people doing different things, people gathering. And this is kind of what really bothered the al-Bashir regime, is the gathering, because they don't want people to discuss and become and be together, you know? And I remember like a year before the fall of al-Bashir, we were in what I could say is maybe the first get-together festival, arts festival in Sudan, that was outside of Khartoum, that was, you know, international. There was a lot of artists together, and it was totally outside of the control of Big Brother. You know, like there was no police, there was nothing. We were in a small village in the north of Sudan, around, I don't know, 100 something artists, and you know, from all over Sudan, and people that do theater, people that do music, people that do painting, people that, you know, it was just incredible, right? And I remember, you know, everyone is sitting there in this old Nubian village, and just really contemplating, you know, like just thinking how beautiful it is just to be free. You know, we're just here, and it's very simple,
right?
But it was so powerful because we were just all here, and no one was scared. No one was wondering, when are we gonna get arrested, or when is this gonna happen, or, you know, we were just there, it's normal, you know, normal gathering. It's because it's the gathering of everyone that really deeply cares
Right.
about this land and its people, and wants
And
to
has the power to communicate in ways that newspapers and politicians can't.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
So, as we're talking more broadly about the sort of arts scene in Sudan, as part of our Hiwaraat conference series, we were hosting a big conference on Sudan just in a couple of weeks. And the title is Seeing Sudan. And the whole premise behind it is that for a conflict that has been woefully and shamefully and in many respects deliberately unseen by a lot of people in the world, we're going to try to cast a gaze on Sudan, and we want to look at it through the arts.
Yeah.
Tell us about your role in the conference. You're going to be front and center. What are you going to be doing? And then I think more broadly, maybe you could talk for a minute or two about just what it means to be artist in residence at Georgetown University in Qatar for a one-year appointment.
Yeah.
And what you hope to achieve and what kind of, how you want to change minds or influence the conversation.
Yeah. For the conference, Seeing Sudan, I think it's first of all, it's something that's, it's history. And I think this is something that, people are going to look at 30, 40, 50, even 100 years from now. So doing that, especially in this day and age now, at this moment right now, with where Sudan is just basically disappearing from the map, and Sudanese are disappearing,
right?
And sadly being ignored. So this is very important, and I'm not, front and center in this one, and I hope I'm not, because there's a lot of incredible minds and incredible people that have been doing incredible things about Sudan, and this is exactly what we need at this moment. And I'm delivering a small part of the conference, which would be an exhibition about a book that we are really relaunching now to retell stories from Sudan by artists. So it's not a history book; it's an art book about history.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're doing we're launching the second book in the exhibition, and hopefully doing an exhibition about the artworks that are in the second book. And that's part of my role as the artist in residence in Georgetown, to deliver this exhibition, and also to just consult and the conference as a whole. And hopefully I'm going to be meeting, a lot of students and working a lot with the students here, guest lecturing and different classes. And again, I like having conversation. I like talking. I like it, having a challenge and knowing new things. And Georgetown is definitely the place for that.
Khalid Albaih, thanks so much for having this conversation with me, for carving out some time for us. And thank you to all of you watching for joining us for this latest installment of the Hiwaraat podcast. Make sure to check out all the other episodes on this podcast and follow us in the socials. And also stay curious, stay engaged, and join us next time for another insightful discussion. Until then, this is Jack Doherty from Georgetown in Qatar, and let's keep the conversation going.